Greetings, residents. Welcome to your front porch at Carnweth Farms. It's another wonderful day, a little bit humid, but a typical summer day here. But the scenery is beautiful. We still have some flowers, a lot of wildlife here. So come on out, this weekend and come here or come to our other parks, as I've said. I hope that you've been able to enjoy your summer, so far. Unfortunately for most of you, I know it's been a challenging summer, to say the least. Today I want to talk about really items that are very important to the town and will be reflected during our upcoming board meeting on next Monday, the 18th. And I'd like to share with you some of my concerns and solutions. These are mine as supervisor, responsible for the overall welfare, quality of life, and development of our town. Even as an internal optimist, and I am an eternal optimist, I am bothered by the growing challenges that we're all facing and that worry so many of you, and especially me as your town supervisor. Despite those challenges, which can be overcome at our local level, we can and must move forward and not remain in the false security of the past. Please remember that history is past. We're talking about not living in the past. The United States economy is at high risk, as we are seeing from the news, which means our local economy, our Wappinger and Southern Dutchess economy and lifestyles will be placed increasingly in jeopardy. And this is where my concerns truly lie. Higher prices for essentials like food and energy are cramping your very incomes, and also non-discretionary monies. Stronger consumer demand has really impacted the prices, and as you've seen, the prices for goods and services not only have risen significantly, but will continue to rise. And we got the bad news yesterday that inflation is at 9.1%. and still rising. There's no insight, and we're looking at this as a creep up inflation, and I hope that it does stop soon, but unfortunately we're not seeing that at this point in time. Declining young family population in our town has resulted in vacancies in our schools, declining class size for graduating classes at all levels. For example, at Myers Corner School alone, we have 120 vacancies. At Evans School, there's 90 vacancies for our school age students. We're seeing higher medical costs. All of us are experiencing that. The town is seeing significant increases in its insurance premiums, which we're gladly paying to help our residents. But now, as COVID is coming back, and please wear your mask, wash your hands, observe some of the old protocols of distancing and being careful. This new wave of COVID is going to be far more infectious. We're seeing it around the world, and that of course will drive medical costs as long COVID and other ailments continue to plague us. The collapsed supply chain of how we get our goods and services is really frustrating all of us, and the solution is not an Amazon Prime Days. Those are just illusory. Our mothers have not been able to find all essential baby formula. I've been trying to help source some from Asia for people that have come and approached me. Our state and federal governments had failed us miserably in this regard. Further, economists are trying to scare us into believing that a long recession is inevitable. With that, it brings more controls, if that is in fact the case. But a few of us, myself and a few of my fellow aged residents, neighbors, lived through the very disastrous rapid rise of inflation in the 1970s. You'll remember the also disastrous logo that President Bush then came up with, whip inflation now. Well, it's not about whipping it, it's about controlling it and bringing it back down. Not only do I very much worry about our seniors, our veterans, and many less fortunate than I and our town board members, because you have very little discretionary incomes, and there is no right now in this town cheaper housing on the horizon. And this is unfortunate because we have not been able to get that through our town, board for different reasons. But affordable housing is absolutely crucial. We have been seeing news repeatedly every day talking about that significant problem. And in fact, in Dutchess County has an executive summary sheet. And this, if you want to have a copy, please ask me about it. But there, and it says, what is different in 2022 is a confluence of circumstances have created rising levels of need for an expanding range of households, including many that had no trouble affording good housing until recently, especially those earning $35,000 to $50,000, and as our discussion at a recent board meeting even showed, even up to $100,000 annual income by two members of the family or more trying to make ends meet. Even the youth, I worry about our young people because their future incomes that they are depending on right now are not going to be able to offset the rise in inflation. And if we see a significant increased rise up to what it was in the 1970s, how can a family, how can our young people, let alone, our seniors, how can anyone live in this town or retire in this town? And what I fear will become a stagnant town of Wappinger, of potentially declining local businesses, and that then when corporate business taxes decline, that means that our town taxes will have to rise. That means that our taxes that go into our fire districts, our public school library, and including our school district itself, will be declining. So we have to arrest that lack of development now. Wappinger has seen this bottom drop out before. Before I moved to the town, I've been reminded of when IBM, cut back drastically on 2 or perhaps 3 occasions. The economy dropped out, our housing market dropped out, goods and services declined significantly within the town, and the town itself had some significant financial problems. As a local community and as a nation, we are at a very decisive crossroads, a confusing crossroads nonetheless, but it's one where we have to make a decision. Are we moving forward or are we turning around and going back? I implore our town board members and all of our boards, to move forward with a vision and not remain mired in a visionless past. While the U.S. Federal Reserve must continue, to act with aggressive hikes, which impact of us all in interest rates, I, in good conscience, cannot allow our residents in Wappinger, to experience declining incomes, rapid local price rises, and housing beyond the reach of many. And if this happens, because we block economic development, we are in deep trouble. You and our dear local consumers have spent additional hundreds of thousands of dollars in food and energy just over the past 12 months. This has hit us all. And, yes, there's not a lot that we can do in some respects, but in others, we can look at what is a major contributor in the decline in your local savings. Part of it is that we don't have enough stores and not enough stock shelves here in Wappinger. And in fact, we see more developing outside of the town, whether it's in Connecticut, whether it's in Newburgh, and that costs you a lot more just to drive to those locations. As we see more shuttered, buildings here, that means, we don't have the ability to buy locally like we once did. Also, that means that as, store space shutters up, we're losing people living. We've seen an increase in our foreclosures, housing foreclosures in the town. This last month, reporting month, we saw 3, which is at a peak of what it used to be in the last couple of years. We must implore all of our leaders, local, state, county, federal, to not only fill the existing shelves, but also to enable our local mom and pop stores to be established and to expand, and thereby add more shelves to the dwindling town of Wappinger inventory. Why are we restraining the obvious development? I keep asking myself, and growing in frustration. Of course, the lack of local workers is presently a huge issue, blocking some of our economic growth more than the supply chain disruptions, in fact. Also, it is hollowing out. Keep in mind, we have have had a very strong first responder group of people, whether it's our fire, it's our police, our ambulance services, second to none. But now they can no longer find sufficient volunteers. Why? There's no housing for young people. There's no housing for workforce people. So what's the problem? I just don't understand what it is. But without local jobs, without local opportunities for more productive jobs, we will not keep our youth at home, and we will not attract more young couples, and families to come to Wappinger. In fact, we're starting to see the opposite. As interest rates rise, those that moved up here to avoid COVID and the other problems in the city are starting to return back, to New York City, to Westchester, where they did not shut down their existing houses, condos, and so forth. They kept those, but now with the cost and also without the availability of goods and services, the New York City, complex is far more accessible, and so we have to look at how we can, help, prevent the erosion of what had been a population growth. The first time the census showed, the recent census that we had, 2020 census, showed a growth for the first time in about 20 years in the population. Unfortunately, we're starting to see that, reverse. And this is because we aren't experiencing the right type of balanced development, especially along Route Line, especially a Route 9D, and also in the town lands up at Wappinger. And then what's the problem? All of our houses have been valued upwards, but as business declines, as others withdraw, as there's a glut of houses on the market, then we are still stuck with these high valuations, and past history has shown that they do not come down. So we're going to have to do something about that. As you have read, and this is including in the town of Wappinger, for every, nearly 2 job openings for every one that is unemployed. And this condition is going to be tough to meet this summer, but our plans, what we'd like to see as far as development, will help us going forward. So some of the key points that I will continue to address, including at this coming board meeting, is economic development and growth along the Route 9 corridor as well as 9D and the village, which we can assist with, as well as hamlets to a lesser degree. We cannot allow Alpine Commons to become a ghost town, which it is on the verge of becoming, especially if they do not move forward with their plans. Let us bring back the mom and pop stores, not only to fill the vacant ones, but also to fill the potential new ones as we look at new development within our marketplaces. We should definitely allow more affordable workforce housing for our young people, for our seniors, for our veterans. To me, this is a no-brainer, and I do not understand why there is some, albeit minimal, as far as I can see, opposition. During the next 2 years, we can see a growth in housing and to address the tremendously growing housing shortage. We're going to enable more water sewer expansion. Stay tuned to our board meeting on Monday night to talk about how we're going to do that in some key areas. I've invited some business leaders along Route 9D South, to come out and show, their support. Furthermore, as I've said, and now we're on the verge of being able to do it, we must protect our Wappinger and Sprout Creek areas. I was able to get out of the engineers' realms, not our engineer, but the village engineer, the final report on the Wappinger Creek initiative known as the 9-element plan. This does affect significantly the town of Wappinger and all the communities up the nearly 42-mile stretch of the Wappinger Creek. But more importantly, by freeing this, getting this report out, which I've done as the chairman of the WIC, then we can also now focus on the Sprout Creek and doing some similar initiatives and passing some laws that will protect not just our water sources, but also enable us to take a more proactive position with respect to enhancing the Sprout Creek, dredging it, protecting endangered wildlife, but creating it into much more of a, not just a recreation area, but keep in mind, we have two major well fields, along there, Meadowwood and Hilltop, from which we draw an increasingly larger amount of water supply for the town. We're in great shape on water supply, better than anyone else. But we have to protect that environment and keep it clean, keep our water sources clean going forward. So please, please participate, share your thoughts, join in the efforts to help, develop in a balanced approach, a reasonable approach, our town. And I do believe in the future. Please show that you do as well. Thank you very much, and please stay safe and remain well. Until soon, please take care. Thank you.